I packed my bags quietly that night, not because I wanted to leave, but because I finally understood that no one was asking me to stay. The house was full of voices, laughter, the sound of plates clinking. Someone had turned the television volume a little too high. Dinner was being served, and yet I had never felt so invisible in my own home. I stood in the hallway for a moment, listening. My family was gathered around the dining table, talking about their day, about work, about plans for the weekend. No one called my name. No one asked where I was. I waited just for a second. Sometimes we hope for small things, even when we already know the answer. But the silence stayed, so I turned back toward the bedroom, the same bedroom I had slept in for years, the same walls that had heard my prayers, my quiet cries, and my promises to myself that things would get better. I opened the closet slowly. The door creaked just a little. I paused, afraid the sound might interrupt dinner. It didn't. I pulled out the old suitcase from the top shelf. The zipper was broken on one side. I remembered saying we should buy a new one. Someone had laughed and said, "Why, you don't travel anywhere." That sentence stayed with me longer than it should have. I placed the suitcase on the bed, sat beside it, and for the first time that day, I let myself breathe. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying yet. I was just tired. Tired of reminding people I existed. Tired of being the one who adjusted, who stayed quiet, who swallowed words to keep peace. I folded my clothes carefully, not because I had anywhere important to go, but because habits don't disappear just because hearts break. Each shirt reminded me of something. The blue one I wore when we celebrated my son's promotion. The plain white one I wore while cleaning the house before guests came. Guests who never noticed my effort. I folded slowly, methodically, like this was just another chore. From the dining room, I heard laughter again. Someone made a joke. Chairs scraped against the floor. Food was being passed around. No one knocked on my door. I thought back to when this house felt different, when I used to sit at that table too. There was a time when my place was always there, when my food stayed warm because someone waited for me, when my voice mattered. But over time, things change in small ways. It starts with conversations happening without you, decisions being made before you're asked, your opinion becoming optional. And then one day, you realize you've been living on the edge of your own family. I zipped the suitcase halfway, stopped. My hands were shaking now. I sat on the bed again and looked around the room. Nothing was really mine anymore. Even the space felt borrowed. I remembered the day we moved into this house, how excited everyone was, how I walked through each room, imagining memories. I didn't imagine this one. I didn't imagine packing my life while everyone else shared a meal. The smell of food drifted down the hallway. Something warm, something familiar. My stomach tightened. I hadn't eaten all day. Not because I wasn't hungry, but because no one had asked me to join. I stood up and closed the suitcase fully this time. The zipper caught. I tugged gently. The sound felt louder than it was. Still, no footsteps came. I picked up my purse, checked inside, phone, wallet, keys. That was it. Funny how a whole life can be reduced to a few items you can carry in your hands. I walked to the mirror by the door, looked at myself. I didn't look dramatic. I didn't look broken. I just looked older, quieter, someone who had learned how to disappear politely. I adjusted my sweater, wiped my eyes before the tears could fall. I didn't want to leave angry. I didn't want to leave shouting. I wanted to leave the way I had lived there for years. Quietly, before stepping out, I paused, not because I was waiting for permission, but because part of me still hoped someone would notice. Someone would say, "Where are you going?" Or, "Sit down, let's eat together." But the only thing I heard was laughter and the sound of cutlery. So I opened the front door slowly. The night air touched my face. Cool, sharp, real. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me without a sound. At the dining table, they kept eating. They didn't know yet, and maybe they wouldn't notice for a while. And that night, I finally chose silence over pain. I didn't go far that night, just down the street to a small park with a single bench under a tree. I sat there holding my purse on my lap, the suitcase beside my feet, listening to the quiet hum of the city. Cars passed. Someone laughed in the distance. Life continued, as if nothing important had just ended. I kept checking my phone, not because I expected an apology, but because part of me still hoped someone would notice. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The screen stayed dark. I leaned back and closed my eyes. The cool air wrapped around me like a blanket, and memories came. Slowly, one by one, I remembered when I used to be the first one awake. I would make tea before sunrise, pack lunches, iron clothes. No one asked me to do those things. I did them because I believed. This was how love worked. You give, quietly, consistently. I remembered birthdays I planned, holidays I cooked for, arguments I softened by staying silent. Somewhere along the way, being needed turned into being expected, and being expected turned into being ignored. My phone vibrated suddenly. My heart jumped. I picked it up quickly. A message, not asking where I was. It said, "Did you take the blue folder from the drawer?" I stared at the screen for a long time. That's when it truly hit me. I could disappear and still be useful, still be asked for things, but not for me. I typed back slowly. No, it's still there. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. That was it. I put the phone face down on the bench. The tears came then. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears sliding down my cheeks while I stared at the ground. I wasn't crying because I left. I was crying because no one tried to stop me. After a while, I stood up. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not yet. I walked to a small bus stop nearby, sat down again. The suitcase felt heavier now. I thought about my children, how I once promised I would always be there. And I was. Every school meeting, every sickness, every late night worry. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being seen as a person. I became a role, the one who would always be there, no matter how she felt. The bus came and went. I didn't get on. I needed time, not distance. Around an hour later, my phone rang. My daughter. I hesitated before answering. Hello, I said softly. Her voice sounded confused, not worried. Mom, where are you? I swallowed. I stepped out, I said. There was a pause. Oh, she replied. We thought you were sleeping. Sleeping. I looked at the dark sky above me. No, I said quietly. I was. Another pause. Well, Dad is asking if you can come back. We're done eating. Done eating. I closed my eyes. I won't be coming back tonight, I said. Her voice shifted slightly. Why are you making this difficult? She asked. That question hurt more than if she had shouted. I'm not making anything difficult, I replied. I'm just taking a break. She sighed. Fine, we'll talk tomorrow, she said. The call ended. I sat there holding the phone, feeling smaller than I ever had. I wasn't angry with her. She didn't learn this behavior alone. We teach people how to treat us by what we accept, and I had accepted too much for too long. That night, I stayed at a small, quiet guest house. The room was plain. One bed, one lamp. It felt empty, but peaceful. I placed the suitcase near the wall, sat on the bed. No one needed anything from me. No one expected me to fix anything. And for the first time in years, I let myself rest. I didn't sleep much, but I rested. In the morning, my phone was full of missed calls. Not many, just enough to remind me I hadn't completely vanished. But still, no one asked the question I needed to hear. No one said, what did we do wrong? They asked, when are you coming back? And that was the difference. Narrator soft, reflective. Sometimes people miss your presence, but not your pain. And that's when you realize leaving wasn't the problem. Being unheard was. The morning light slipped through the thin curtains. soft and pale, like it didn't want to wake me too suddenly. I sat up slowly on the edge of the bed, my feet touching the cold floor. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came back. The suitcase, the silence, the unanswered question. No one had asked. I reached for my phone. A few more messages had come in. Not one asking how I felt. Just updates. Your father left early. Your son has a game tonight. We didn't find the blue folder. I stared at the screen, feeling something shift inside me. I realized something painful. They didn't notice my absence. They noticed the interruption of routine. I showered slowly, letting the water run longer than necessary. At home, I was always rushing. Someone was always waiting. Something was always needed. Here, there was time. After getting dressed, I stepped outside. The city looked ordinary. People going to work, shops opening, life moving forward. No one knew. A woman had quietly stepped out of her own life. I walked to a cafe nearby and ordered tea. Just tea. No one asking if I wanted sugar. No one telling me what I should eat. The cup was warm in my hands, and as I sat there, memories came again. Not the dramatic ones, the small ones, the times I swallowed words to keep the peace, the times I said it's fine when it was, the times I smiled so no one would ask questions. I remembered the first time I realized something was changing. It was years ago. I had cooked dinner after a long day. The food was on the table, still warm. Everyone sat down and started eating. No one said thank you, not because they were ungrateful, but because they expected it. I sat there, chewing slowly, feeling invisible at my own table. That night, I washed the dishes while they watched television. I stood at the sink, listening to laughter that didn't include me. And I remember thinking, if I disappeared, would they notice? I shook my head at the memory. I didn't know then that the answer would come. Years later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my husband. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. Hello. His voice was calm, too calm. Where are you? He asked. I told you, I'm taking a break. A pause. You could have told us properly, he said. I almost laughed. Properly, I repeated. I packed quietly while you ate dinner. Another pause. That was unnecessary, he replied. Unnecessary. The word sat heavy in my chest. What was necessary? I said slowly. Was someone noticing me before it came to this? He sighed. You're overreacting, he said. There it was, the sentence I had heard, in different forms. For years, you always make things bigger than they are. You're too sensitive. Just let it go. I closed my eyes. I'm not overreacting, I said. I'm finally reacting. Silence on the other end. Then he said, "Well, come home when you're ready to be reasonable." Reasonable. I hung up, not out of anger, out of exhaustion. I finished my tea slowly, paid the bill, and walked back to the guest house. On the way, I passed a mirror in a shop window. I stopped. I barely recognized myself, not because I looked different, but because I looked lighter, sad, yes, but not trapped. That afternoon, I opened my suitcase and took out a notebook I had packed. Without thinking, it was old, half used. I sat on the bed and started writing. Not letters, not plans, just truths. I wrote about the nights I cried quietly in the bathroom, about the birthdays when no one asked what I wanted, about the way my opinions slowly stopped mattering, page after page, and with every word, I felt myself returning. That evening, I didn't wait for calls. I turned my phone off, not as punishment, as protection, and in that quiet room, I realized something important. I hadn't left my family. I had left my silence. By the third day, the house felt my absence, even if they didn't want to admit it. It started with small things. The sink filled with dishes. The laundry stayed untouched. The quiet routines I had carried for years began to fall apart, not because I was special, but because I was constant. That morning, my phone rang again. I let it ring, then again. Finally, I answered. My son's voice came through, hesitant. "Mom, Dad burned the rice." I closed my eyes. In the past, I would have laughed and rushed home. This time, I just listened, and I said gently. There was a pause. "And the house feels strange," he said. "Too quiet, too quiet." I wanted to tell him it had always been quiet for me, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "Strange doesn't mean wrong." He didn't reply. That afternoon, my daughter came to see me. She stood outside the guest house door, arms crossed, trying to look annoyed. But I saw it. Confusion, guilt, fear. "You could have told us you were this unhappy," she said. I stepped aside and let her in. "I did," I replied softly. "Many times, just not loudly." She looked around the room. "This is small," she said. I smiled. "Yes," I said, "but it's quiet." She sat down on the edge of the bed. "Dad is stressed," she said. "He didn't mean to ignore you." "I know," I replied. "He never did." "That's the problem." She frowned. "What do you want now?" she asked. The question surprised me. "I want to be seen," I said, "as more than someone who fills the gaps." She looked away. "We didn't realize," she started. "I know," I said gently, "and that's why I left quietly. Because I didn't want a fight. I wanted understanding." She stayed silent for a long time. Before leaving, she said, "Things can't stay like this." I nodded. "No," I agreed. "They can't." That evening, my husband called again. His voice was different now, less firm, less certain. "The house doesn't feel right," he said. I almost laughed again. "It never does when something important is missing," I replied. He cleared his throat. "When are you coming back?" he asked. I took a deep breath. When I know my presence matters more than my service. Silence. Then quietly, he said, "I didn't know it was that bad." I closed my eyes. "You didn't want to know," I replied. "There's a difference." We ended the call without anger, without resolution, but something had shifted. That night, I wrote one final thing in my notebook. I wrote, "I am not asking for perfection. I am asking for respect." And for the first time since I left, I felt something close to hope. I packed my bags quietly while my family ate dinner. This ending includes emotional closure, plus a powerful lesson plus, perfectly placed like slash comment, slash share, slash subscribe lines, designed for maximum watch time and audience connection. I didn't return home the next day or the day after that. I stayed where I was long enough to remember who I used to be before I became invisible. I woke up when my body was ready. I drank tea without rushing. I sat in silence without feeling guilty. And in that quiet, I realized something important. I didn't leave to punish them. I left to save myself. On the 7th day, my husband came to see me. He stood in the doorway, like a guest in his own marriage. "I didn't know how much you carried," he said. I didn't interrupt. "I thought you were strong," he continued. "I thought you didn't need anything." I nodded. "That's the mistake," I said softly. "Strength isn't the absence of need. It's the courage to admit it." He looked at me then, really looked. "For years," he said, "I saw you working, but I stopped seeing you." The words landed quietly. "I don't want to lose you," he added. I took a breath. "Then don't keep me only when I'm useful," I replied. "Keep me because I matter." He nodded slowly. "I want to try again," he said. I thought for a moment. "I will come home," I said, "but not to be the same woman." He understood. When I returned, the house looked the same, but I didn't. I no longer rushed to fix everything. I no longer filled every silence. I spoke when I felt unheard. At first, it was uncomfortable, but comfort was never the goal. Respect was. One evening, we sat at the dinner table again. This time, they waited for me before starting. My daughter asked, "How was your day?" And she waited for the answer. My son cleared his plate. Without being asked, small things, but small things are how healing begins. I didn't get my old life back. I got a better one. Not louder, easier, but honest. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video so more people who feel unseen can find it. If you've ever stayed quiet to keep the peace, leave a comment. Your story matters too. And if someone you love needs to hear this message, share this video with them. Don't forget to subscribe for more calm, emotional stories about family, love, and finding your voice again. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is leave quietly and come back stronger